Hey, welcome back to my channel. Something big just broke in America's auto industry, but you won't hear it on the evening news. Behind the shiny showrooms and corporate statements, one of the world's most trusted car makers is quietly taking a hit. It never saw coming.
Companies like Toyota, Subaru, Honda, which have the lowest stockpiles of cars already in the U.S., could see the most immediate impact in terms of price increases and therefore starting to hit affordable compact cars.
Honda, the name that once defined reliability and balance, just warned of a collapse so steep it's sending shockwaves through the global supply chain. In its latest forecast, the company expects profits to plunge 59%. The cause isn't a recall or a new rival, it's Washington. President Trump's sweeping import tariffs, some reaching 50%, have turned every car crossing the border into a financial time bomb. Honda's global losses are estimated at over $4.3 billion, with more than half tied directly to U.S. import duties.
What is happening so far is the companies are absorbing most of it. So contrary to what Trump says, that the Mexicans are going to pay the tariffs or the Canadians are going to pay the tariffs, right now it's been the car companies that are paying the tariffs, and it's cutting.
Factories that once ran non-stop are now idling. Suppliers across the Midwest describe what they call an industrial aftershock. And inside Honda's boardrooms, a single question hangs in the air. If even a global giant like Honda can stumble, what happens to everyone else? Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button. A simple like helps push this video to more people who need to see it. And while the storm raged south of the border, something very different was happening just a few hundred miles north. As Washington built walls, Ottawa opened doors. Canada saw what few others did, that Honda's crisis could be more than a warning. It could be an opportunity to reshape North America's entire auto map.
The electric vehicle market growth has slowed down more than expected.
Honda says it will not affect current production of some 400,000 vehicles it manufactures in Alliston, Ontario. The province's premier didn't sound bullish, but he's counting on Honda maintaining operations here.
We'll just see how that moves forward, but we're very confident that we'll continue producing Honda vehicles here in Ontario.
By mid-2024, Honda announced a historic $11 billion investment in Ontario, the company's largest ever in Canada. The plan wasn't just about survival, it was about reinvention. Honda would build a new EV assembly plant, an independent battery factory, and 2 additional battery material facilities in partnership with POSCO Future M and Asahi Kasei Corporation. The goal? To create Canada's first fully integrated EV supply chain, from materials to batteries to vehicles, a structure designed for long-term industrial independence. When complete, the project could produce 240,000 electric vehicles a year and generate 36 GWh of battery capacity, with operations expected to begin by 2028. In a world of uncertainty, Canada offered what investors crave most: stability, transparency, and consistency. Analysts now call it North America's replacement ecosystem, a refuge for companies quietly slipping out of the U.S. trade crossfire. Still with us? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. But Honda wasn't the only one reading the signs. What started as a single corporate pivot soon evolved into a broader migration, a quiet exodus of global manufacturing power from the United States. Across the industry, Japanese and European automakers, from Toyota and BMW to Hyundai, began reviewing their North American footprints. The new rule of survival in the age of tariffs was simple: produce where the policy is predictable. For many, that meant shifting production north, to Canada or south, to Mexico, anywhere the cost of doing business didn't come with political uncertainty attached. Honda's choice of Ontario wasn't random. Strategically positioned between the vast U.S. consumer market and Atlantic export routes, it offered a dual advantage: proximity to America and direct access to European ports. That made it not only efficient, but geopolitically balanced. Recognizing the stakes, both the federal government and the Ontario provincial government stepped in, pledging up to $5 billion in shared financial support to ensure Honda's project could compete with global EV investments. The structure was designed not as a bailout, but as a partnership, one that gave Canada leverage in shaping its industrial future. And there was more: a 10% tax credit for EV supply chain investments and a 30% credit for clean technology projects gave Canada an enduring edge over the United States, especially as the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, incentives became mired in political debate and uncertainty. Policy experts now describe Ottawa's approach as a smart counterpunch, turning the capital fleeing U.S. instability into fuel for Canada's next industrial boom. From that foundation, Ontario began to transform, not just as a place where cars are assembled, but as a clean industry powerhouse shaping the future of North American manufacturing. And at the center of that transformation stands Honda. The company's new complex in Alliston is projected to create more than 1,000 direct jobs, bringing Honda Canada's total workforce to around 5,000. More will be added indirectly through construction, logistics, research, and supplier networks, building a ripple effect across southern Ontario's industrial corridor. Through joint ventures with POSCO Future M and Asahi Kasei Corporation, Canada is doing something few expected a decade ago, localizing the entire battery materials chain, from cathodes to separators. This integration not only reduces dependency on overseas suppliers, but embeds Canada deeper into the global EV value system. Early estimates suggest that producing batteries domestically could cut costs by over 20%, a strategic edge that allows Honda to remain competitive against both Chinese giants and U.S. rivals. And while the U.S. grapples with tariff-driven price hikes, Ontario is leaning on its renewable hydroelectric power and a rich reserve of nickel, lithium, and cobalt to strengthen its industrial base. Economists now describe what's unfolding as the quiet rebirth of Canadian manufacturing. While America's production lines strain under rising costs and political uncertainty, Canada is quietly positioning itself as the region's stable anchor, a country proving that steady policy can be just as powerful as protectionism. As Ontario's industrial revival gained momentum, cracks were forming to the south. President Trump's vow to bring manufacturing home was colliding with economic reality, and Honda became the clearest example. With tariffs inflating costs, every U.S.-built or imported car carried an extra $5,000, $7,000 in expenses. The impact was swift. Honda's U.S. sales fell 18% in Q2 2025, while plants in Mexico and Canada ramped up to compensate. Foreign investors took note. As policy uncertainty deepened, FDI in the U.S. auto sector dropped nearly 30% in the first half of 2025. The policy meant to protect industry was instead pushing capital and jobs abroad. Canada moved the other way, attracting over $46 billion in EV manufacturing investment since 2020, surpassing Mexico and emerging as North America's new growth hub. Analysts summed it up simply. The U.S. builds walls, Canada builds bridges. One isolates, the other connects. And in a world built on supply chains, that difference may decide the future. Even with Canada emerging as a safe harbor in a turbulent trade world, the skies weren't entirely clear. By mid-2025, Honda announced a 2-year delay to its Ontario EV project. CEO Toshihiro Mibe explained simply, "The global EV market is growing more slowly than expected." Behind that calm statement was a deeper reality. EV demand had cooled. In China, an oversupply of batteries and cheap models slashed prices, crushing margins across the industry from Detroit to Tokyo. Rather than overbuild, Honda chose caution, refining its supply chain and pacing its investment. Some saw hesitation, others saw discipline. The delay tempered short-term job hopes in Ontario but preserved long-term stability. Analysts called it a pause for precision, a deliberate slowdown to build on real demand, not hype. As one expert put it, Canada is playing the long game, waiting for the wave instead of chasing the ripple. From Honda's profit collapse to the quiet flight of global capital, one truth is hard to ignore. Protectionism doesn't protect, it isolates. The tariffs meant to shield U.S. industry have instead pushed innovation, investment, and manufacturing talent toward more stable markets. As Washington builds walls, high-tech production is quietly rerouting to Canada, Europe, and Southeast Asia. In this realignment, Canada has become the silent winner, turning global uncertainty into a foundation for a cleaner, more resilient industry. If the U.S. keeps escalating tariffs, it risks more than short-term losses. Analysts warn that global firms could permanently shift their operations to regions that value consistency over confrontation. Because in today's supply chain wars, trust has become the strongest tariff of all. So here's the question. If America loses Honda today, could it also be losing the future of its industrial identity? Maybe that's the real story beneath the headlines, a race not of tariffs, but of confidence. The nations that can promise stability, clarity, and partnership will define the next era of global manufacturing. The others may find themselves watching from the sidelines as the world rebuilds without them. So what do you think? Is Canada's rise a lucky break or a blueprint for a new kind of economic leadership? Thanks for sticking around. If you found this valuable, like and subscribe to support more content like this.